For all of you who listen to Mackey's Second Floor Studios Presents Submersion and own an Android device, do me a favor. Go to the Google Play Store and download the Podcast Republic app. It's a fantastic app that allows you to get all of your favorite podcasts directly on your Android device. I use the app and I love it. I can search for the podcasts I want to listen to, select them as favorites, and have them all just a click away. Make sure to set Mackey's Second Floor Studios as a favorite so you don't miss any of our new episodes. Again, the app is the Podcast Republic app, available on Android devices.
All right. So welcome to the first ever special episode of Submersion, where we go in our little submersible and we explore the true depths of the submarine world. Because we're going to be talking about not a movie, not something big, not even like a TV movie. This is a television show, one episode of a television show that features a submarine. We thought with Kyle away on vacation, kind of probably drinking away his worries, we can jump in and do a little special one, a little short, a little sweeter, with only the best of the gang, me and Brom. High five.
High five.
When you're not in the torpedo tube, you're my BFF. Don't tell Kyle.
When there's literally no one else on the podcast, I'm your favorite co-host.
Exactly. And then my brother from London.
Yep, guess what?
Across the pond.
I am the resident expert of NCIS, it turns out. So
Right, so that's that, and you jumped straight ahead, but that's good because we are talking about an NCIS episode. Sub Rosa, you told me that you would destroy me if we did that without you, if we actually did an episode about the NCIS without you, because you are a expert. You love it.
yeah, I'm sure there are actual real life experts who would have actually seen all the seasons who would take offense to this, but I don't care. I've seen 9 seasons of NCIS.
Jesus Christ.
So that is...
And this isn't even the only old person show you watch. You've watched a whole bunch of old people shows,
I
right?
watched the entirety of Murder, She Wrote. And
that's like a classic old person show. Yeah.
And the entirety of They Make Fun of Me Over Here across the pond in the UK, because I watched the entirety of Midsummer Murder. And literally, my boss at one point when I mentioned this said, "You are a 65-year-old woman." That's what he told me.
Exactly.
Straight up. That's what he told me.
There's going to be someday I'm going to be talking to you and you'll be like, "Oh, we watched a few episodes of Matlock this week and that was about it."
I've been tempted, but we've been distracted because we've been watching all of the Star Treks. So we're almost done with Deep Space Nine. So
I'm not sure that's I feel like that's timeless. It's not really an old person thing.
Actually, I have to say the Deep Space Nine is fantastic. So anyways.
Just to catch everybody up, it's not just Kyle. Kyle, the Mustard Man, and Zach the Backbone, all 3 of them are actually on vacation together.
Yeah. My invite got lost in the mail. That's what he told me. For this famous boat trip. I feel like it was this boat trip where Submersion was born one year, talking about submarine movies. So haven't earned my place on the boat yet, but alas.
Someday. I got to experience a little movie that we reference on the podcast quite a bit about an obstinate pilot. Do you want to guess what it was? I watched it for the first time ever.
Top Gun.
Was it Top Gun?
No, it was John Carpenter's The Thing.
Ooh.
Oh, that's a funny way to
nice.
put it. Obstinate pilot. Sure.
I know, I wanted to throw you off. I loved it, though. It was really good. And then I ended up watching the prequel, the remake prequel or whatever, 2011 thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that bad. I saw it wasn't very critically reviewed, and it certainly wasn't as good as the original, but
I've never
still
seen
really
it,
enjoyed
so
it.
I'm not sure.
I've seen it, and the only issue is mainly that the CGI just doesn't hold up, and they do all CGI. They couldn't get it. Well, you can see online because they tried to do practical effects and they couldn't do it. So then they just changed the CGI, and the CGI doesn't look good. So
yeah, so that's a great segue into the NCIS episode, which has flawless CGI. Occasionally, the USS Wet Floater encounters mysteries even deeper than it can explore. In cases such as these, a crack team of experts board our submersible and plumb the deepest depths of submarine pop culture. This is Mackey's Second Floor Studio presents Submersion, a Submersible Pod. And so you can jump right into it. Now, it was funny to jump right into the pool, NCIS pool, because it really is very character driven, so you have to understand who these people are to really get anything.
Yeah. So
like right off the bat, I almost felt like I was lost. Like,
let me just ask, what do you think of Gibbs?
I think Gibbs is just a classic television character. I feel like this is what everyone kind of wants out of their main character, like House or someone like that, where it's like they know what's going on and they really like push against authority when authority doesn't allow them to get justice. And so, like, I don't know. I felt like it was just like, yes, this is as expected. This is who I expected to be the main character of NCIS.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. I think that makes sense.
I don't know.
I feel like this was a good episode to jump in on if you're just going to jump in on a random episode other than the first one, because it seemed like they were kind of introducing some of the characters and like the whole.
So it's a seventh episode. And so if you didn't know, Kate is introduced in the first episode of the first season. So she's a new addition to the team. So she's still kind of like finding her legs. Oh. So she doesn't really quite know when Gibbs, we'll get to, should we jump into the story because some of it like.
I think we should, yeah.
Kind of plays into it. So, so you kind of open up. They always do these like short openings for NCIS. A lot of the cop shows obviously do. But it's between these two, longshoremen. They're loading some chemicals. And the one guy, I don't know if he's drunk. I don't know what happened, but he really botches this job. And he dumps a bunch of really bad chemicals, hydrofluoric acid, onto the ground. But
yeah, I loved it at this point too, where first, like he jumps out and he's like, "I'm going to be cleaning this up for weeks." It's like, yeah you screwed it up. Like you have no one else to blame but yourself. Like that's it.
Yeah, basically. So then there's a really gross dead body that falls out. So that's another thing.
And not nearly as decomposed as expected, and they kind of get to that a little bit later as to what that means.
Yeah, so basically like that's another thing with NCIS is they'll have, like, especially the early seasons, they have really gross dead bodies. I don't know why. It's just really gross. So then, obviously, when, I don't know why NCIS gets called, like, specifically, because they don't find out it's a submariner until later. But for what, maybe...
It's just on a base, right?
It's on the base, that's right. Never mind, it's on the base.
Yeah, I believe it's on the Navy base, naval base.
So they call in, obviously, Gibbs' team, because they're the best.
Right.
And so...
And who is the asshole guy? The guy who's like just a general dick?
Denozo?
What's his name?
Gibbs. But Denozo...
No. Yeah, Denozo, yeah.
Denozo.
Does he ever get does he get a softer side to him? I feel like usually when you have an asshole like this, there's a point where you have to get to see like a softer side of him.
You learn a lot about him. So you learn that his father is a kind of a rich, but also kind of a con man. Like he kind of came up in affluence, but also he was kind of neglected. He went to like private schools and never really saw his father. And then he went to Ohio State. He mentions this for whatever, physical education or whatever, but he ends up becoming a Baltimore cop. So he's in the homicide division of Baltimore cops. And you see a whole flashback where he meets Gibbs and Gibbs gives him a job. So he was in the homicide division of Baltimore for years and years and years and just kind of like falls into Gibbs' team.
So then she's talking to Kate, who's the woman on the team.
Yep.
Right?
So she used to work in the Secret Service. Yeah. So and she just joined. Basically, she's invited at in the first episode to join the team.
Yeah. And so they've gotten the call about this dead body, and the asshole guy's like, "Oh, like you look like shit," basically to the woman.
Yeah.
And she's like sick or something. It's so strange because it doesn't come to anything. They never talk about her sickness or her not feeling well. It's just always
it's the general banter.
It's like whatever.
Get that banter in.
It seems to be the aim was to have her knock over Gibbs's coffee cup because Gibbs comes in with coffee and she immediately knocks over his coffee cup.
One of the many quirks of Gibbs is that he constantly drinks coffee that looks vaguely like Starbucks but is not Starbucks because while they are sponsored by many things in the show, they are not sponsored by Starbucks.
I didn't notice at all. They were sponsored by something in the show? We'll get to it. And they're like, we're in uncharted territory, Gibbs, without his coffee, which was funny, too, because there's literally, first of all, ample opportunity for him to get coffee many times. And then they almost immediately get 24 hours later, where like that coffee means nothing. So like it's just like such a weird thing to be like uncharted territory, and then it plays no role at all. It's just to kind of harp on this quirk of his, so they can make a joke real quick and get out of there.
So then they arrive at the wherever the accident happened, and so now you meet two new characters. Well, not new characters, but Ducky, for example. He's like the main pathologist guy who runs the morgue. He is on every single episode of NCIS, basically. He's one of three.
Really?
Yeah. So he's one of I think 3 characters that up until this year were in every single episode, which was him, Abby, and Gibbs were in every single episode. Abby is now leaving, played by something Peretti, Paula Peretti. So now they're just the 2, Ducky and Gibbs, are the only people that are in the entire thing. And then you're introduced to Tim McGee. So Tim McGee is also regular. He's been in over 300 episodes of the entire series, and he joins the team in season 2. But he's just a regular in season 1. So this is the first episode with Tim McGee.
There is a scene here as they are leaving the docks where you can see a bunch of picketing protesters.
Oh, yes.
Foreshadowing.
I wonder if that'll become important.
Anyways,
And it's about whales getting killed by the Navy, basically.
Yeah, and then they do their stuff. They do their like autopsy. Ducky talks to the body, which he always does, and then they kind of FaceTime in with Abby and him, and they end up figuring out. This is when they figure out that he has like a dolphin tattoo on his arm, and so he is a submariner, right?
Right.
There's not really anything else in between.
The only thing to definitely note is they mispronounce the word submariner. They call him a submariner
numerous times,
which is unacceptable.
There's an even worse incident later on, but we'll get to it. And actually, it tripped me for a second, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, it was also weird with just to go back to the Save the Whales thing, like that whole protest. Yeah. So is Gibbs supposed to be kind of like just a general hard ass? Because he says like, why don't you just shoot them to these protesters?
We can get into it after, but I think they completely botch his character in the first season, and I think he's supposed to just be kind of an asshole. He's supposed to be like a no-nonsense military man. He was a Marine, is like the backstory. Yeah.
No, so another thing to just quickly ask, the asshole guy, sorry, I can't, his name is what?
Denozo.
So Denozo
Tony, you
and
call
Kate.
him Tony, for example.
Yeah, is Tony and Kate, do they end up having like a love thing?
Are we going to be doing spoilies on the show?
Well, just like for the whole series of NCIS?
For the whole series of NCIS.
Yeah, you can just spoil it.
Okay. Kate gets killed at the end of season 2. Yeah, disaster.
Wait.
Oh, that's sad.
Well,
Kate,
so
is this Agent Todd you're talking about?
Yes.
She gets killed?
Yes, she gets shot in the head by
Ziva, I think I remember that now.
Aforementioned Ziva's half-brother, who's a Mossad agent.
I do remember that now.
Yeah, and Ziva, his this killer's half-sister, is that killer's handler. So she works and like is basically just his contact in Israel. And then she ends up joining the team afterward. Anyways.
I just didn't know if Tony's like several moments of sexual harassment of Kate, subtle, very light sexual harassment in the end.
They transfer that almost seamlessly to Ziva, and then more sport. This is actually beyond even where I've seen it. Eventually, Ziva and him have a kid. Ziva dies, and then Tony moves to Israel to take care of the child, and that's how the person who plays Tony Denozo gets his own show called Bull. On CBS.
So anyways, so he's Submariner. They're trying to figure out what submarines are around that maybe the Submariner was supposed to be on. And there's a bunch of Los Angeles class subs there. So there's 3 in port, but there was one that just left. The Philadelphia, USS Philadelphia. And it seems pretty obvious that the USS Philadelphia is the one that they're going to be interested in, because if you kill someone and it clearly he had just been dumped in this acid, you would think you want to be able to get on the submarine and get your mission done as quickly as possible, because it might be discovered. So there's a saboteur aboard the Philadelphia, they presume.
And so at this point, first they go to the commander's like office. And he's like, well, we can't have ladies. We can't do anything with the ladies on board.
And I did appreciate this is the first of many moments of them kind of explaining some of the submarine quirks and ideas and stuff like that. And this is the first one where it's like, women can't be on submarines. And of course, when we first started watching submarine movies, that was one of the first things that come up, because you watch something like Down Periscope, and there's all kinds of trivia about the fact that there's a woman on a submarine in that movie. So, and I mean, I guess the other one was Operation Petticoat, where they brought all the women aboard and everyone's like, you!
And Below.
And Below.
Yeah. So anyways,
that's right, and Below. That was the worst one.
At this point, Gibbs stands up for Kate, gets her on job, and then everyone splits up into 3 groups effectively. So it's Kate and Gibbs go to the submarine. Tony and Tim are kind of bored, but they do their own like little investigation of what eventually becomes like an investigation of the whale people. And then Ducky and Abby are doing like the forensic side of things, trying to figure out who the person is, basically, who it might be. So this is also a pretty big trait. I mean, it's a decent sized ensemble cast for a show like this. So they do that actually quite often, where they kind of like split up into 3 different stories that all kind of join up. Seinfeld-esque, maybe.
And, so, and just to ask, do you have any idea? Just NCIS must have a pretty good relationship with the Navy, or no?
I mean, it's spun off of JAG, so I imagine yes. I would assume it's always been. I think that guy who developed it, I can't remember. It starts with a B. I would assume that he has like a very good
Jerry Bruckheimer.
No, it's not.
Yes,
him.
Jerry Bruckheimer.
I'm pretty sure the guy who made the show. This is the only show he's made. Anyways.
So the military, because the military shots were pretty kind of nice looking, and then although I think some of that came from Hunt for Red October, and then they were actually used a real submarine name and indicator number in the show. So the USS Philadelphia is portrayed as SSN 690, which in fact was the name of SS 690 is
cool.
the USS Philadelphia.
Well, anyways, the most interesting story is them flying out to the submarine. Were you going to say something, Brom?
No, I did not.
Okay. So they fly out to the Philadelphia, Agent Todd and Agent Gibbs, basically. And this is when they meet, basically, a murderer's row of television actors. It is
character actors.
Quite impressive. So first, they meet Landry's dad, a.k.a. the Secret Service agent from 24, who's the captain of the USS Philadelphia. And then one of the suspects is the campaign manager from The Killing, the first 2 seasons of The Killing. And so, which is like, he was much younger, obviously, so he wasn't famous at that point.
Oh, yeah. I knew I recognized that guy.
So after the fact, you might think, oh, that must be the killer because he's famous now. Right. This is before he actually became like kind of TV famous. But anyway, so then they go on and they think it could be one of 5 people because the rest of them all either they kind of know who they are or they're excluded because of dental records. It's like another thing. So they bring these 4 people, and it's kind of a funny sequence of interrogations where they're like trying to figure it out, and because they all lie. Like these 3 people that they show, all 3 of them lie about something. So the first guy is from South Boston. He lies about I can't really remember.
He lied about a year at college or something that. He didn't complete a year.
Yeah. The next guy lied about the fact that he was actually in juvie instead of he had mono or something. And another guy lied about being married or something, or he didn't quite get that he was like actually married or not or something. Anyways, at this point, I thought I had solved it with my submersion knowledge because at one point Gibbs refers to the submarine as a ship. And I go, oh. And this was with a South Boston guy who actually ends up being the bad guy. And I'm sitting there being like, it's definitely him. He didn't stop him. He didn't say it's a boat.
I see. That's funny. That's a good thought.
Yeah.
Definitely a good thought.
Didn't end up being the actual.
But they also had already mispronounced submariner like 5 times at this point. So.
Yes.
And so anyways, they end up kind of like thinking it's kind of a lost cause because they're all lying to him. Gibbs does a whole thing where he's trying to just ply Kate with delicious Dasani waters to get her to go to the
just
bathroom.
like Dasani after Dasani after Dasani after Dasani after Dasani after Dasani after Dasani.
Label toward the camera, Dasani, and then he sneaks out when she
not a sponsor. It's not a sponsor of our podcast, though. Just to be clear.
And then he sneaks out and he finds the second guy who's not the killer, and he's drinking Dasani. So that's
just
really
loving
funny.
that Dasani.
And so, but then they end up figuring out that he was in juvie, so now that kind of like crapped on their first thought. And then eventually Abby, elsewhere. So first, Denozo and Tim, Denozo and McGee, we'll go with last names. They discover the whole link to the whale people. And then Abby and Ducky reconstruct the face, look through records, and end up figuring out that the guy who's missing is the sonar guy, who's the guy from South Boston, the first guy they interviewed.
So before we jump straight to that, I do want to mention one thing. So Brom, did you have any thoughts, like as you were, it's obviously a mystery. Did you have a thought on who it was going to be and a reason why, or were you just kind of going with the flow?
I thought it was the killing guy again, just because I've seen him somewhere else. I figured they brought in someone with some acting chops to be the villain.
A ringer.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like I remember as it was kind of going through the whole thing, like I thought for sure what the plot was, that it wasn't going to be like sarin gas being released at some, temperature, which is what it ends up being. I thought it was a case of, they're doing this war game, and the ploy was that the guy was going to put a real torpedo, which is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous just to think, because obviously I don't even think there would be real torpedoes during the war game. Like they wouldn't even have them. But like I thought for sure that was it, and that's why it like depended on them closing in on this thing, because they do this whole thing where they're closing in during this war game. They're gonna shoot this submarine, and Gibbs comes in and is like, I got to talk to NCIS real quick, and kind of forces them away from finishing the job of killing this submarine as part of the war games. And I thought, oh, he just like inadvertently spoiled the plan of putting this real torpedo out there and then shooting and exploding a submarine. My mistake was thinking that the killer wanted to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was my big I didn't think the killer would just like be okay with killing everyone on board a submarine, including himself. So
yeah, I like I said, I was thinking of that kid, and I was also thinking at some point maybe the captain, because
That'd be so ludicrous.
That would be the best.
I'm using actually a later episode of NCIS. There's these people who make like perfect masks in order to like, break into places, and it's just the actors wandering around. It is the most ludicrous episode I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't make any sense.
Again, I wasn't thinking the captain would be killing the whole boat or anything, or doing the whole sarin gas thing, but I could have seen him as the killer of one of the grunts, just because of, again, the way he was acting. But I mean, that's understandable. But also because I recognized him, and also because they did so much to kind of like create a diversion to make you think it was going to be one of these first 5 people that they interviewed, and it had to be.
I definitely thought it was going to turn out to be not one of those 5.
Yeah, they kept stressing that it has to be. It has to be a rookie. It has to be one of these 5. Yeah. So I'm like, well, maybe it's not then.
So, anyways, they figure out that it's a sonar guy, and just as they get confirmation from Abby that it's definitely the first guy, he kind of goes away. He's like, I need to use the bathroom, and they're like, oh, we're in the middle of like an exercise or whatever. Like, that's fine. You could just leave your station. I'm pretty sure they'd be like, no fucking way. Like, hold it for a second. It's fine. But like, so he goes away, and then they go and discover that he's killed himself in his bunk in a very strange way. He just kind of like, he tied a plastic bag over his head. I don't think I think of that as being a suicide method.
I mean, that's classic, right? I mean, that's how... I
feel like it's classic, like how someone gets killed. I thought definitely there was going to be an accomplice. That's someone else on board.
I mean, that's how the guy... I mean, there's a bunch of movies where that is how people like kill themselves. It's like really weird, though. You're right. It's not...
We skipped past the football scene.
What football scene?
Oh, when they break and enter into the thing?
So that's a classic NCIS where they break all the rules, and you're just in there being like, but then you don't have a case. I don't understand your logic here. Like, you can't just break and enter into a suspect's house.
Then he's like, it's not breaking. This is breaking.
And this is entering. That is those are the legal definitions of the crime you are committing, Anthony. Like, this is crazy. Anyways, that happens all the time. Actually, one of my biggest frustrations with thriller books is when they're like, isn't it worth it in the grand scheme of like justice that I like break the rules a couple times? I'm like, no, because the criminal's gonna get out of jail. Like, it's like, I'm planting evidence, but isn't it like a good thing, kind of? And it's like, what? No, like, yeah, you're gonna get the case thrown out of court. Like, I don't understand. Like, you can't have the criminal get out because of your ludicrous actions. That's also when we learn that Tim McGee is a whiz with computers. And the thing you will eventually learn, so he has a bachelor's in biomedical engineering from Johns Hopkins, and he has a bachelor there and a master's in comp sci from MIT. And the thing you eventually learn, and this is why like somehow the show manages to get more and less ludicrous as the seasons go on. So it becomes much more like the stakes are higher, and it becomes much more like serious. Like they still make jokes and jokes and jokes, but like it's slightly more serious in later seasons. But somehow everything also just like is absolutely ridiculous. There'll be moments where Gibbs will go to McGee and be like, and McGee will be like, this is the most sophisticated encryption algorithm in the world. It would take a supercomputer 1 million years to crack. And Gibbs will be like, Tim, what can you do for me? And Tim will be like, give me an hour. And then he cracks it. And you're like, no, that's not how encryption works. Like, that is not how it works. Like, it's just absolutely ludicrous. So, like, he is literally the smartest person in the world in this alternate universe. Tim McGee, who works at NCIS, is the smartest person in the world.
So anyways, because they broke and entered into this thing, they find the secret room and they find some like prototype devices on how this guy was going to release sarin gas onto the submarine. And they bring it to Abby and is like, how does this thing work? We don't even know. And Abby goes over and is like, oh, I know exactly what this is, because Abby's also a genius.
She is. She's also, by the way, she completed someone's like 3-year-long government-issued biomedical research in a day and a half one time.
Right.
Not joking. It took her a day and a half, and she completed research into like solving immortality or some ludicrous thing. It's the worst. It's so bad.
So she sprays it with some cold and was like, okay, yeah, at 5 degrees, it will open up, and that's when the sarin gas will be released. And they're like, well, where on a submarine would it be that cold? They're like, I don't know, like a freezer. And they have this whole scene with Harmon or with Gibbs in the submarine, sitting there, and they're kind of like, I wonder what his gambit was. That was so weird that guy just like killed himself. It doesn't seem to make any sense. And they're like, oh, got some ice cream for you, ice cream party. And Gibbs is like, cool, I love ice cream. Is that another quirk of his? Does he like ice cream? Is
no,
that like a big
part? he revels in the fact that he knows like Navy customs. And so when it comes out, he's just sitting there like with a little shit-eating grin on, like, it's because they had to move a body in there.
Because they had to move a body. And he's like, oh shit, he has like a Sherlock Holmes moment where he's like, wait, that he knew that would be procedure. He knew when he got killed, they would put him into the freezer, and that must be how the sarin gas ends up getting released.
So the sarin gas must be in the ice cream. Wait, no, Gibbs, one second.
Not it. It's in this ice cream. But so they rush to the freezer, they grab the dead body, which is already bloating with sarin gas, and in truly classic, they Brom him, stuff him into that torpedo tube, and shoot him out. And they save the day once again. And at the very end, we get a little bit of a scene of kind of introducing how McGee is going to be part of the series from then on. Because he was kind of like, oh, I thought Abby sounded cute. And Abby was like, I thought that rookie kind of sounded cute. And the guy's like laughing. Tony's like laughing to himself. Like, you guys couldn't be more different. He's like a total square. And you're like hard rock listening, like punk girl. Like, you aren't going to like each other. And
goth would be the term she's going to use, but she sleeps in a coffin. So.
Ooh. And McGee was like, well, why don't you think she'd be my type? He's like, well, do you ever have the urge to get a tattoo on your ass? And he's like, no, I never did. And then he shows up at the NCIS office and is like, because I took your advice. I got mom. I chose mom, implying that he got a tattoo on his ass and him and Abby are going to become an item.
So they don't.
Okay, what? That's crazy.
So they do.
Wait, for real?
So basically the storyline that kind of develops is that they did go out in the first season, but then they're just very good friends from that point forward. Like, they break up, and then they have like a weird kind of like chemistry in season 2. And then later on they kind of indicate, because at one point Abby has to hide in his apartment because some killers are after her. And so they indicate that she still has like a toothbrush there or something. And so they did go out at one point, but they never. And then I've seen like just flipping through channels while sitting in my parents' house, our parents' house at some point. I remember like flipping through and seeing like a really late season, like season 14, and he's married to someone else in that one. So like they never are like an item. Yeah. Abby's whole thing, her boyfriends come and go. There's never really like a standard one. She develops a very strange relationship with Gibbs, where Gibbs, I think, treats her like a kind of long lost daughter. And it is the creepiest thing you will ever see in your life if you watch it. It's just absolutely the grossest. Just absolutely. Those people Gibbs should be fired immediately from the government position. It's disgusting how he treats his employees.
Agent Gibbs
constantly. He hits him.
Agent Gibbs and Agent Todd's sort of have a romantic encounter too when they have the emergency blow.
A little emergency blow.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's a little bit. That's another sexual harassment type.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of. At one point, they have a sexual harassment meeting in the show, and they're all like making fun of it. And Abby is like, I can't hug people anymore. And they're like, yes, this is absolutely ridiculous. Abby's correct. And I'm sitting there like, no, you guys have a problem. You hit and you abuse each other. constantly. It's a serious issue. It's just the worst.
All right, so that's pretty much it for the episode. I think we'll do our kind of our ratings. So I was thinking we'd do it out of, instead of 12 inches, it's like our little submersible and exploring some depths. So we're gonna do 6 inches, and it's it kind of 1 to 6, and kind of how you feel like it represented submarines as what it is. Because in the end, like, this isn't a movie. It's like a TV show. So like 1 to 6, how do you feel like as a submarine television show it like satisfied your hunger?
Okay.
Who wants to go first?
Go for it, Brom?
Brom, go.
I can give it a shot. Sure. I was more prepared to grade it on a 12. If I were to grade it on a 12, just like an enjoyment level thing, it'd probably be like a 4 or something like that. But
sure.
On actual like submarine footage and stuff, I mean, it was it had a lot of the mainstays, but they were mispronouncing submariner and called it a ship, and obviously didn't know a whole lot about submarines, and we didn't get any crush depth or fires on the boat or anything like that. But
we did get that one time that the captain pulled at his dick, and they were like, "You're just a character actor. Why are you doing that?" Okay, that's true.
And then Gibbs came in and was
trying to make a name for myself.
This is my jurisdiction.
Gibbs was like, "I understand Navy protocol." He's like, wait a second. He knew that at some point the captain would pull out his dick, and that's when the sarin gas would go off.
But you didn't get jurisdiction. Come on. Anyways.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I did.
So anyways, you didn't finish it, bro.
Yeah. I jumped in.
I will give it based on just the sub experience here. I did like the ending, launching the guy out the torpedo tube and the sarin gas. It was well thought through. I'm going to give it a 4.
Nice.
6.
4 out of 6. Okay. Jamie, you want to go? We'll leave the expert to end.
And I feel like I kind of agree with that. I think all things considered for what it was, like, that's the thing. If I was grading it on a scale, the 12-inch scale that we usually do, like, it's like a TV movie. Like, in a lot of ways, it would fall into that grounds of like a regular TV movie, somewhere in the 3 to 6 inch range. But, when you take it into context and say, okay, this is the TV show NCIS and it's their submarine episode, I thought it was quite good in a lot of ways. They give us some information. At some point, they even go like chief of boat because like someone's confused by it. They talk about women in submarines. They do all this stuff and have all this footage kind of going along with it, that I was like, you know what, that was pretty good. And I was kind of thinking along the same lines as you, and ended up at about around like a 4.5, something like that.
Okay, question for you. Have you heard in any of the movies prior to this referring to the chief of boat as Cobb instead of Sir?
I believe in Crimson Tide they may have done that.
I was going to say,
you can't hold me to that, but I believe in Crimson Tide.
I'm pretty sure you are correct. I'm pretty sure. Anyways,
I just thought it sounded weird. I'd almost prefer to be called Sir. Cobb sounds so weird.
The thing is with Crimson Tide, I think we were so early in our times. What I remember is I thought there was a character named Cobb.
Oh,
they kept on calling him Cobb, right? So like I was
that
Cobb.
Could be.
But now thinking back on it, I'm pretty sure he was the chief of boat. I'm pretty sure they were just calling him Cobb.
Yeah, that would make sense.
All right, and then I think I'm going to just slam dunk over both of you, because given the entire context, the history that I have with NCIS, and the fact is I'm pretty sure this is the only episode they do, at least on a submarine, at least predominantly based on a submarine, I'll say that. And I have to say I was very impressed. Like, this is one of the more enjoyable NCIS episodes I can remember, and I like they're introducing Tim McGee's there doing his little thing as Proby, the new guy, and I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 6. I think it deserves it. I think the show itself is like not good, but this episode, if you were gonna show any episode to anybody, like this might be the one that you'd want to show, to be like, this is kind of what the feel is. It's a little bit funny. You got the bants, you got the little banter going on, a little sexual harassment over here. It's fine.
Obviously,
ignore that part. And ultimately, I think and also I like the fact that they're doing the whole thing where they're like falling backwards when the ship, like the boat, is going up, and it seemed like they were doing a lot of like the radar stuff properly. Like, it really did seem like they were on like a really nice either set or like an actual submarine. It was hard to tell. but I thought it looked good. As far as like a TV show, a CBS TV show is going to do, that's the best you're going to get for a submarine, period. So.
I'd be curious when we do another one of these, get an opportunity to do another one of these, because I'm pretty sure NCIS Los Angeles is a 2-part submarine episode.
You know that it's not only ladies that love LL Cool J, like Cool James. Patrick loves Cool James. So.
Right. All right. So that's our summary. I'm going to jump into a little bit of trivia for this guy. So on IMDb, they have some trivia. One of the obvious ones is obviously this is the first introduction of Special Agent Timothy McGee, who plays a large part in the series. The shots of the submarine underwater during the emergency blow and the landing of the helicopter are all from Hunt for Red October.
Excellent.
I couldn't find out where the other ones were from, like the plane landing and stuff like that, because I didn't. It's weird with TV shows; they don't seem to have to do like those special thanks stuff that movies kind of have to do. So you can apparently show this kind of footage and not really credit it. It's very strange.
I mean, CBS must have like a film division, so maybe it's just like and we can use them on our shows. Kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe. Sean Murray. Does that ring a bell for you, Patrick?
Yes.
Who is Sean Murray?
No idea.
Okay. So Sean Murray's younger brother, Chad W. Murray, played a murder victim 3 episodes previous. So he must have been part of this episode. And then his younger brother was a murder victim 3 episodes before. And that's kind of just like a little trivia.
Or Sean Murray is Timothy McGee.
Oh, okay. So yeah, there we go. His younger brother had been a murder suspect. The other weird things is McGee is is left-handed, has a gun on his left side. The entire series except for this episode where he wears it on his right. Just a little strange. And then they had a goof or a plot hole where Gibbs and Kate have no way of learning how the sarin gas is activated, and yet they're able to know immediately when they jump to with a freezer and they jump to do it. And that's considered a plot hole. I find kind of interesting.
I don't
right,
think
because
so.
Gibbs is also a genius, so he knows.
Well, he
there
just
must have been some other plan.
There must be some plan that involves
there must be a plan, yeah. So I found that kind of funny that IMDb has that as like a plot hole. I mean, I guess it is in technicality a plot hole, but like whatever. So that was that, and then it's kind of a brief because I normally do like a casting what ifs and trying to keep things a little short for this special episode. We're just going to do one, or I guess a couple different options here. How do you think LL Cool James, ladies love him, would have performed in an episode like this?
I mean, admirably. I've seen him perform in NCIS, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. So,
well, how would it have been different from Gibbs's character? Is his character kind of Gibbs-esque?
No, so he's not like the leader. He's more like
it'd be DiNozzo.
Yeah, it'd be like DiNozzo, but it's more like smooth and not a sexual predator.
Sure.
If you get my drift.
Less rapey.
What about Chris O'Donnell? How would he have performed?
Again, Chris O'Donnell. So Chris O'Donnell is more like, he's not really even like Tim McGee. They're all different. They all have different feelings to them. So Chris O'Donnell's thing is that he's an actor and he gets into a role and he goes undercover. And so they show him like preparing in the mirror in the first episode that he's introduced. So he's like even different than Tim. He's not like a guy who's like going on computers. Oh no, actually now I think about it, LL Cool J is Tim McGee. And then O'Donnell is DiNozzo. Because LL Cool J is the guy, he works like the fancy computer screen in his episode. He's like doing all like the hand movement stuff to operate this. Totally not a promotional Windows like operating feature that they want to show off for some reason. And Gibbs is like, I want one of those. Call up Microsoft. Anyways.
Yeah. What about my last one? What about Ed Harris? What do you think? How his character would have been?
I mean, he's obviously Gibbs, and it's amazing. It's actually the show is 1,000 times better. No offense. I love Summer School, but Mark Harmon is maybe not the best actor in the world.
I just watched him in a movie called The Presidio with Sean Connery, and it is it's absurd how kind of bad he is as a character. Like he is supposed to play a certain type of character, and he is doing that. Like physically, he is acting like that, and you're watching just being like, oh, he's an idiot. And you afterwards, you're like, oh, I wasn't supposed to think he was an idiot. He just seemed like an idiot because of the way that he was portrayed. Like he came across as like a total doofus because of how Harmon played him. And I was like, oh, that was a really bad job. Like he was supposed to actually come across as like a good cop, and he came off across as like a horrible cop. So
Mark Harmon's been a lead in a TV series for like 30 years. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Ed Harris would have been basically like Harmon, except with like Ripley abs. And instead of ice cream, they would have been like, we got to get rid of all this grease from the freezer. Like, what? Why is all this grease in the freezer? Oh, my God, it spilled all over me.
Anyways, what's up next? Are we doing the...
So the next one, I'm going to just do a quick subs worldwide.
It's subs world wide.
So in this one, it was portrayed USS Philadelphia was as an actual submarine, SSN 690. It was laid down in 1972, launched in 1974, and decommissioned in 2010. So it was in service for 33 years. And had all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's got a bunch of awards: Navy Unit Commendation, Meritorious Unit Commendation, Southwest Asia Service Medal. So obviously it was in Vietnam, and so it was a big part of the Navy, through that kind of 70s to the 2000s. I did try to find out if it was in anything else. Unfortunately, it's a Wikipedia page, because the cool thing about submarines is like every submarine has its own Wikipedia page in the end, for the most part. And and they'll have like in popular culture if it showed up somewhere. And this is the only one though, alas. So it doesn't seem like the USS Philadelphia was seen in any other thing. But apparently some of the images of the submarine was USS Philadelphia was seen in that episode. So presumably at some point it was actually seen. Maybe they used some footage from it like surfacing or something. Yeah. So that's a little subs worldwide. Real quick. And I forgot to do my Phantom Zone. So let me just finish that up real quick.
Engage the Phantom.
Phantom's engaged, sir.
Phantom Zone. I had used this before not use this one. That'd be kind of crazy if I was like NCIS episode. That's how I do it. But I had used an actor who was in this. So as we've mentioned before, Larry, is it Poindexter? No, that's the wrong. Glenn Morshower, Landry's dad from Friday Night Lights, was in Under Siege, and he was also in Pearl Harbor. And Pearl Harbor features William Fichtner. So it's only a couple steps going from guest spot star Glenn Morshower straight to Willie Fichtner, who's in Phantom. The interesting thing is, like, during that whole cycle from The Abyss, I actually had like several opportunities just to jump to Glenn Morshower, but seemingly decided not to, because he was in Godzilla, the 1998 Godzilla, and he was also in the Transformers films, which I used like a whole bunch during that cycle. So that cycle was like 18 films long, and I could have had it be like 6. It's been like the greatest resource for my Phantom Zone ever, because I literally a million times I can make it into this cycle that I created. So did the same thing here. Moral of the story. Yeah.
All right. So does Brom want to go, and then I will end with my special NCIS themed game.
Do the special NCIS one, and then we'll finish up with the Brom's countdown.
All right. So they didn't, for any NCIS heads out there, there's a thing inside NCIS in which Gibbs, he has these things called Gibbs rules. Okay. They're numbered. And whenever someone does something bad and violates them, Denozo or someone will shake their head and be like, no, that violates Gibbs rules number 71.
Yeah, like, what an idiot, kind of, right?
And like, what rule 71, what is it? And Gibbs will like quiz his like proteges on his rules. So I have 10 rules you guys can discuss between you. I'm going to give a rule, and you have to tell me whether it's an actual rule that's been mentioned in the show, or I made it up 5 minutes ago. Not 5 minutes ago, an hour ago.
And these are Gibbs's rules?
These are Gibbs's rules.
Okay.
On how to live life, basically. All right. So, Jamie, I guess, yeah, you guys can basically discuss, but never go anywhere without a knife, real or fake.
I'm going to go real.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you. I say real.
It's real. Okay, that's one.
Yes.
Never, ever involve lawyers.
That one sounds real.
That sounds real too. Yeah.
Real?
Yeah.
Rules are meant to be broken.
Oh. See, that's clever. I feel like, maybe you're clever. Sucks. Damn it. I don't think it's right.
I'm going to say fake too.
It's fake. You got it. If it seems like someone's out to get you, they are.
I'm also going to go fake on that one, personally.
Yeah, that sounds too paranoid for his character.
Ooh, it's real. Okay.
Oh, man.
That one's real. Only trust yourself.
Fake.
Fake. I agree with that.
It's obviously fake because he's all about team. He's all about teamwork. If you're going to do something, do it.
I think that one is
real. Yeah.
That one's fake. Nailed it. Never trust a woman who doesn't trust her man.
Oh, that's a weird one.
Never. What does that mean? Never trust a woman. So you can't trust a woman
who doesn't trust her man.
See, I feel like that sounds real because it sounds like something where there would have been a case where there was some woman who like doesn't trust her husband or something, and he would say it. So I'm gonna go real.
I'll say real. Yeah.
It's real. Don't trust the FBI.
That also sounds real.
I'm gonna go fake on that one.
Brom's got it. It's fake. I'm gonna give it to you guys because you guys are doing so well. This is unbelievable to me. Never apologize.
We just have such a good beat on Gibbs.
Yeah. Never apologize. It makes you look weak.
Maybe if it was season 1, but it sounds like they kind of redeemed his character in later seasons. I think that's fake.
I'm gonna agree with Brom.
Not only is it real, but it is one of the most consistent things he says. And also, spoiler alert, it's not really a Gibbs rule, but he says it so much it might as well be. Straight up, he says it so much, and it's the most ludicrous and offensive thing I've ever seen on television.
Yeah, it really is weird that would be.
It sends an incredibly bad message, and he tells it to DiNozzo all the time, like, never apologize.
How does
it makes you look weak? It's like, ugh.
Yeah, it's real weird. It's a really weird thing to say.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Brom?
No, I was gonna have you say it over again, but no.
Never apologize. It makes you look weak.
Yeah,
that's when he gets cited for sexual harassment and they ask him to do an apology.
Yeah,
to the woman. He's like, "I never apologize. It makes me look weak."
Yeah, it's really demented.
And everyone's like, "Gibbs, ooh."
It's like 6 or 7 seasons until they stop like mentioning that. It's really bad. They eventually they clean up his character a little bit after 3 or 4 seasons. Like he starts out as having like 3 ex-wives. They all kind of look the same, but then they introduce a tragic. His wife died, and all of his ex-wives look. It's not very much better, but they have to kind of dismiss being like, forget about those ex-wives. He still loved his wife and his child that got killed. And it's like, okay, they found a better backstory for this man. Finally,
that's bizarre.
So yeah.
All right, Brom, take this guy home.
Tube 3 ready to fire, sir.
Commence the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give it to me.
All right, so if we remember, the last time we had Patrick on the show, we had a countdown that we called the Face-Off Countdown.
Oh, yeah.
That was because we had Gary Busey and Billy D. Williams going toe-to-toe in Steel Sharks. And we reviewed movies that had 2 headliners, and the challenge was to determine who was the studio tasked with listing first on the poster, even though they both, could have been recognized prominently in their own right. This is a television version, as we watched a television show this week, and there's some great ensemble casts out there, and as you probably know, a lot of TV shows come along, and this is where a lot of great actors and actresses get their start. And so if you look back on some of these TV shows, it's just amazing sometimes to see how many, A-listers are in these shows. So it's going to be another challenge this week, top 5 of the TV shows with these ensemble casts. You have to tell me who is listed first in the opening credits.
In the opening credits, okay.
All right. Yeah, because there's not really posters for a lot of the TV shows. Right. Number one, let's start with Friends, the 1994 American buddy sitcom, long-running, extremely popular show, one of the most watched TV shows of all time.
Is this the discussion, or are we competing against each other?
This is a competition.
Okay.
All right, so this show starred Courtney Cox, Matt LeBlanc, Jennifer Aniston, David Schwimmer, Matthew Perry, and Lisa Kudrow. Who was listed first in the opening credits during the series?
I think it is David Schwimmer.
I think it's Jennifer Aniston.
Correct answer is Jennifer Aniston. Ooh, 1 point to Jamie.
I was gonna say, because David Schwimmer was the first one hired, and he actually was like the reason why the show got on the air, and he was the only person where the producer was like, no, he needs to be in the show. So I figured he was the main character.
Well, extra insight there.
So there we go.
So I knew it was going to be either one of those two because that's the main storyline of the show is like their dynamic. So you know, and it opens with Rachel's wedding kind of going awry. So
Anyway, know quite a bit about this.
We do.
And just to mention, the brothers Jamie and Patrick were tied after our first face-off. Kyle won that competition, so we'll see if we get some separation in round 2 here.
Probably will. I'll probably guess all of them wrong. Go on.
All right, counting down. The next one here, number 4, is Game of Thrones, 2011, Emmy-winningest television show of all time, a fantasy epic. We have got, we're going to do starting with season 2. I'm not going to spoil it for any Game of Thrones
that does change it.
Potential viewers. Season 1's pretty obvious, but season 2, something shakes it up a little bit. And our top 3, in my opinion, would be Amelia Clarke, Lena Headey, and Peter Dinklage. Oops, pardon me, I hit my mic. All right, in case you didn't catch that, Amelia Clarke, Lena Headey, and Peter Dinklage, who is listed number 1.
I'm going to go Amelia Clarke.
I'm going to do the same.
Correct answer is Peter Dinklage.
Whoa, that's actually pretty impressive.
Damn. Huh. That is kind of crazy, consider. I mean, he is obviously one of the few people you'd say have their own storyline consistently all the time in the series. I just thought Amelia Clarke being...
I feel like the same way with Amelia Clarke.
It might just be because
Headey.
Dinklage at that point was the most famous actor on the show, like as far as pedigree was concerned.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
once What's-His-Face exited after season 1, it was definitively Dinklage was the one who had probably the longest track record in film and television at that point.
Yeah. All right, well, that sucked. All right,
next one, number 3. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, 2005 American sitcom, commonly referred to as Seinfeld on crack. It stars Charlie Day, Rob McElhenney, Glenn Howerton, Caitlin Olsen, and Danny DeVito. Who is listed number 1?
What's it? The one that starts with an M? Rob? Was it Rob?
Rob McElhenney, the creator of the show.
That's who I'd say.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Howerton.
Correct answer, Charlie Day.
Ooh.
Oh wow! What? So that would have been like last on my list.
No,
I even
all
thought
3 of those guys created the show, by the way.
I know. It seemed like he seems more like the side character of the bunch.
I think it was arbitrary order.
It's almost like Kramer being listed first or something on Seinfeld.
If I actually go back, it might be alphabetical. I'd have to go back and look.
Oh, that's a good point. We should have thought about that.
Hopefully not, because I actually cut Wet Hot American Summer because it was alphabetical. Because that's a really good one. There's like 20 huge comedic actors and actresses.
That would have really thrown it for a loop too, because there's an obvious main character that wouldn't have been number 1 because of alphabetical. All right.
Next one. This is a good one. Number 2, Freaks and Geeks, 1999. Just one season of this show, but was a who's who of upcoming comedic actors. This show featured John Francis Daly, James Franco, Seth Rogen, Linda Cardellini, and Jason Segel.
It has to be Linda Cardellini, right?
I would go... I'd say Cardellini as well.
That is correct. She was the primary character.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's two main characters, but it makes more sense for her to be the first name.
Well, the entire show follows her kind of breakdown after her grandmother dies, right? So it really is like about her transformation and kind of entering the in-between world between the freaks and geeks. Anyways.
Sure.
And lastly, number 1, we got ER, Emergency Room, from 1994, long-running American medical drama. This is going back to Season 1, Episode 1, when the cast consisted of Anthony Edwards, Noah Weil, George Clooney, and Juliana Margulies.
I need to catch up.
Which one are you going to go? Do you need me to go first?
I would like you to go first, if you would. Oblige.
I'm going to be going with Noah Wiley.
I feel like I'm going to regret it, but I'm going to go Anthony Edwards.
Ladies and gentlemen, gaining some ground is Patrick with Anthony Edwards.
We're talking about sex, just like sexy man Noah Wiley getting beat out by Revenge of the Nerds, Anthony Edwards.
I feel like he had a pretty decent pedigree though because of that.
Yeah, maybe.
And I feel like George Clooney wasn't known very well.
He wasn't going to be the top one.
So he wasn't going to be top.
Still locked in a dead tie now after 2 rounds of countdown face-off.
Ooh.
Wow!
Can't wait.
You don't have a tiebreaker or anything, do you?
No, not yet. We'll keep it as a long-running segment every time Patrick gets on the show.
I will take this opportunity. 1, best twins ever. 2, badmovietwins.com. That's badmovietwins.com.
Yeah.
Our blog.
Go to badmovietwins.com.
Do it right now.
Right.
And so I think that's it. I mean, we really could have, we are the best twins ever, so I'm not sure why Brom was on here, but thank you for being here.
Yep.
And I hopefully Kyle, I totally botched this and it gets lost to time and we can all blame Kyle for it. Thanks for listening to Submersion. Find us on SoundCloud and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Can't get enough of us? Don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every Thursday. And if you like what you heard, please go ahead and give us a rating.